I hope you're all having the best day possible. And as always, I appreciate you taking a bit of time out of that day to actually watch one of my videos. And I know the one from yesterday was a bit out of character, but I just really want to start talking about things outside of silver. But of course, that doesn't mean that my greatest passion is just going to leave me. Silver is always something I will be covering as well. And in this video, I actually want to take just one moment to discuss why I believe you should actually start investing in collectible silver items where you're actually paying a really high premium, meaning that you're actually paying much more than what the silver alone in that item is worth. I don't know why it took so long to explain that. You guys know what it's all about, right? So I know a lot of stackers out there are very much hardcore on the side of, I want to buy the cheapest silver possible, I'm in this for the longest term possible, and ultimately, I don't care about anything else. No one's going to care about what silver you have in an economic collapse, and I just want to have the very most possible for my dollar, which is a very fair thing to believe. And if a situation arose like early 2020, where the spot price dropped all the way down to $12 an ounce, something that was obviously not reflective of what silver should have even been at, even with regular market manipulation, that would definitely be a time where I'd say, yeah, go all in on the low premium stuff. That is the smartest move you can possibly make right now. You can very much lower the dollar cost average of your own stack by buying at one of the lowest prices silver has ever seen in terms of the last decade. But what I also think is really important to consider is the flexibility that diversifying between high premium and low premium silver can actually give you. Because let's say 6 months from now, you are forced to sell some of your silver because of something that comes up in your own life, right? It's just something that is inevitable for a lot of people out there who aren't exactly, carrying tens of thousands of dollars in their savings account. So you have a situation like this arise, and let's say that the cost of silver itself has actually gone down a lot at this point. Maybe the market's being heavily manipulated, maybe something else is going on in the world, but silver prices are, let's say, only $17 an ounce. And throughout the entire time you've been stacking, let's say you've only been stacking for 9 months, right? Your dollar cost average per ounce is somewhere in the mid 20s or even somewhere in the low 20s. Obviously, selling at $17 an ounce, especially if you're forced to sell really fast and probably can't even recover the small premiums that are generally on the lower cost silver because you're having to sell as quickly as possible. So you might have to sell at spot price just to offload it in time, right? You're going to be losing many dollars per ounce just because of the fact that you're forced to sell right now. And generally speaking, as long as you have the ability to hold on to that silver for as long as possible, price fluctuations don't matter. But again, we're assuming that you're not someone who's prepared for a massive financial obligation. The future does not really predict itself for you. Not everyone out there is going to have enough money to cover anything that could come up without having to sacrifice any of their other assets. It's just not realistic to assume everyone watching this video is in that situation just because you might happen to be. So if you are, that's great. And if you don't agree with the video, then click off. But for everyone else out there, what I'm going to tell you right now is that collectible silver, especially if you are buying it when it's first released, will actually do the very opposite of that spot price. If you're buying pieces that are genuinely going to be valued by other collectors, you'll actually see the premiums only increase. And I'm talking about items that have maybe population counts in the low hundreds. Items that are genuinely desirable as well, right? It can't be like a silver bar made by some company that your friend owns that nobody's ever heard of, and you're like, oh, it's one of one, so I should be able to sell it for way more in the future. Obviously, there's no desirability from other collectors. I'm talking about genuinely collectible stuff that's graded, stuff that is just desirable by many people in the industry, or I should say many people in the stacking game. But oftentimes having these pieces will actually allow you to not have to sell at a loss at all. You can instead sell off some of your high premium silver and actually end up making some money on that silver, or at the very least not losing like 25% of your value the way you would if silver went all the way down to $17 an ounce when you were forced to sell. And then you're able to actually recover much more of your original investment in that type of situation. So I just think that owning collectible silver gives you a whole lot more flexibility in that potential situation where you don't get to just hold on to your silver forever. And if you are someone watching this who thinks that maybe that could be you, well, then at least consider looking into the collectible stuff. You won't have to lose just because the silver market has gone down in a time where you're forced to sell. Even if the premiums don't go up on the item, because of the fact that you paid so much more than the spot cost, the actual price of silver going down is not going to really hurt these collectible items the way that it does hurt generic bullion and coins and anything else that rely on the spot price of silver in of itself. So I just think that it's really important to just consider diversifying if you're someone who cannot afford to go all in on one thing or the other, because at the end of the day, it is realistic to assume that one day you might just have something come up that you didn't proceed happening, and then you might have to end up selling off some of your stuff. But with that being said, I do hope you enjoyed this quick little video, and I really hope that for some of you guys out there, it at least helps you see kind of the value of collectible silver. I know I already talked about why I'm buying high premium silver right now, but that was a little bit of a different subject. I was more focusing on the fact that I think silver is going to continue getting manipulated lower, and obviously a lot of people would disagree with me. People are looking at the way that the silver paper market is so unfairly disproportionately higher than the amount of physical silver out there to represent it, and they think that that's a telltale sign of manipulation, but also of the fact that silver is going to break free, I guess. I think that it's a telltale sign that manipulation is stronger than ever, and I just think that we have a long way to go before we ever see fair silver prices. But before I go, I do want to point out that obviously, if you buy a piece of collectible silver that's overhyped when it's first released, and then it ends up dropping significantly in value, that could end up biting you even more than the silver price itself. So just make sure you are doing a bit of due diligence and really looking at series that actually have a proven track history of maintaining and even gaining in value. For example, different American Silver Eagles, if you're able to buy those when they're first released, and I'm not talking about just the standard Eagles and tubes, I'm talking about ones that are like first day, first strike, all these different special qualifiers. Those types of coins generally tend to actually gain value over time, and different things in that nature that are much safer collectible items instead of taking a risk on something that you've never heard of before definitely will be able to allow you to counteract the spot price of silver actually dropping in a situation where you're forced to sell in the future. But that is truly it for this one now. Peace.